just 3 minutes ago, Donald Trump went live and unleashed a direct, verbal assault on British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, sending political shockwaves through Westminster. Within minutes of his speech, officials in London were scrambling behind closed doors. Emergency meetings were called. Markets began to wobble, and what started as a fiery outburst threatened to spiral into one of the greatest diplomatic crises Britain has faced in decades. This wasn't just another Trump tirade. It was a calculated declaration, one that could reshape the balance of power between Washington and London. Standing before cameras in Washington, Trump directly accused Starmer's government of betraying America and warned that Britain would face, in his words, serious consequences for its disloyalty. His tone was furious, his words crystal clear. Britain, under Starmer, was no longer seen as a trusted ally. Behind-the-scenes, senior U.S. officials confirmed that the remarks weren't off the cuff. The White House had prepared talking points, press releases, and coordinated media briefings to accompany the event. It was a message designed to be seen and heard. Worldwide, the United States was done, pretending the special relationship still existed. For decades, that phrase symbolized shared history. Trust and cooperation tonight. Trump shattered it live and on purpose. Within minutes, British diplomatic channels went into panic mode. Foreign Secretary David Lammy rushed into number 10, surrounded by advisors and security. Insiders say Starmer's team was blindsided. They believed relations with Washington were stabilizing after months of icy silence. But Trump's public fury proved otherwise. He accused Starmer of meddling in the 2024 U.S. election and crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. The reaction across the Atlantic was immediate. Nigel Farage took to X, formerly Twitter, to post Trump is right. Starmer has destroyed Britain's credibility abroad. The post exploded online, shared over 100,000 times within an hour. Elon Musk joined in amplifying Trump's message to hundreds of millions of followers and accusing the Labour government of being anti-American, anti-freedom, and dangerously naive. The online firestorm turned into a political earthquake. Meanwhile, financial markets were already reacting. The pound slipped against the dollar, as traders feared new tariffs could follow. Trump hinted at such measures himself, warning that the U.S. was reviewing all trade deals with countries that don't respect the United States. A line that everyone knew referred to Britain. Inside Westminster, chaos reigned. Cabinet ministers were divided. Some urged Starmer to apologize publicly. Others warned that any sign of weakness would embolden Trump further. Leaks from Downing Street suggested growing panic, with some advisors privately saying the Prime Minister's position was now untenable. Analysts called it unprecedented, and no U.S. president had ever humiliated a British leader so publicly, not even during the Suez Crisis or the Iraq War. But this was more than humiliation. It was strategy. Trump was reshaping global alliances around loyalty and personal respect, and in his view, Starmer had failed both tests. In the same speech, Trump praised Nigel Farage, calling him a man who understands, which I understand, real leadership. The contrast at condemnation for Starmer, praise for Farage, sent shockwaves through British politics overnight. Reform UK began surging in the polls, and Farage was suddenly being seen, not just as an opposition figure, but as Trump's chosen ally in Britain. For Labour, the optics were catastrophic. The leader of the free world was openly siding with their political rival. Foreign Office rushed to make contact with Washington through every available channel, but Trump's team wasn't answering. Instead, they were briefing U.S. media that Britain would need to earn back America's trust. Words Britain hadn't heard from Washington in nearly a century across Europe. China and Russia governments watched closely. The question on every capital's lips was the same. If Britain could lose its most vital ally this quickly, what did that say about its strength? Overnight reports from Washington indicated that Trump's inner circle was drafting executive actions targeting British trade, intelligence cooperation, and defense agreements. Sources described these as calibrations of loyalty, Trump's coded term for economic punishment. The proposed measures included 25% tariffs on British steel, and car exports restrictions on defense contracts, and a review of intelligence sharing under the Five Eyes alliance. The very foundation of the UK-US partnership was being shaken. Publicly and deliberately, Trump's live attack had only been the opening move. The real pressure was just beginning. In London, Starmer found himself trapped in a tightening vice. British newspapers screamed headlines, like Trump declares Britain disloyal, and a special relationship in freefall. Inside, number 10 advisors clashed over strategy. Some wanted to issue a conciliatory statement to soothe Trump's ego. Others warned that any apology would humiliate Britain. Further paralysis set in. Each hour without a response made the government appear weaker, more desperate and increasingly irrelevant. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage launched a media blitz across U.S. television, positioning himself as the bridge between Trump's America and post-Starmer Britain. His message was devastatingly simple. As Starmer broke the alliance, and only new leadership can fix it, Trump reinforced that narrative by reposting Farage's interviews. With the caption, "A real friend of America." As the crisis deepened, markets continued to plunge. The pound hit new lows, energy prices climbed, and businesses dependent on U.S. contracts began to panic. Defense firms, automakers, and pharmaceutical companies demanded reassurance. But Downing Street had none to give. Washington wasn't taking calls. Diplomats admitted privately that Britain, once America's closest ally, was being ghosted on the global stage. The mood within the Labour Party turned poisonous. Ministers shouted across meeting tables, some demanding Starmer resign to save the government. "He's lost the confidence of our most powerful ally," one senior MP said privately. "He may soon lose the confidence of his own party." Across Europe, allies kept their distance. France and Germany quietly opened their own back channels to Trump's team, determined to protect their relationships. Even Canada and Australia avoided public support for Stoneman's government. The isolation was total late that night. Trump returned to social media with a chilling post. "Britain has treated America very badly. They interfered in our election, insulted our movement, and now they act like victims. There will be consequences and big ones. Respect or pay within minutes." The phrase "respect or pay" trended worldwide, becoming the slogan of Trump's new foreign policy. Analysts noted how closely it echoed his campaign rhetoric: blunt, theatrical, and absolute by morning. The fallout was catastrophic. Polls showed Labour support dropping 6 points in a single day, while Reform UK surged. Protesters flooded Downing Street, waving both British and American flags and chanting, "Rebuild the special relationship and Starmer must go." The atmosphere in London felt like a government, teetering on the edge inside. No, 10. Surrounded by advisors who couldn't agree on a plan. Every statement drafted was rejected. Too weak, too defensive, too provocative. The Prime Minister's authority was evaporating. Hour by hour, Nigel Farage seizes the moment, demanding an emergency session of Parliament to hold Starmer accountable for destroying 75 years of friendship. In 75 minutes, the motion gained cross-party traction, and whispers of a no-confidence vote filled the air. When Starmer finally addressed Parliament, his measured tone couldn't mask the turmoil. "The United Kingdom remains a steadfast ally of the United States," he said carefully. "We will continue to engage through diplomatic channels to resolve any misunderstanding." But the words rang hollow. Within minutes, Trump reposted the clip with 2 words. Too late, that post broke Westminster. Markets tumbled to 30-year lows. Energy companies announced price hikes, and international investors froze new UK projects. Pending clarity from Washington, the economic pain had arrived, and the political collapse was close behind. By nightfall, Downing Street was in meltdown. Inside the quiet halls of power, one haunting question echoed louder than ever. Is this how the special relationship ends? Not with a handshake, but with a hashtag. The nation woke up to a silence. Heavier than any headline, the once proud walls of Westminster now stood as a reminder of chaos, a place that had witnessed democracy unravel. Live on television in the hours following the attack. London transformed into a fortress. Police lines stretched across Westminster Bridge. Helicopters circled the Thames, and the media flooded every inch of the capital, searching for answers. What had really happened inside Parliament? Was it a planned assault or the collapse of a system pushed beyond its breaking point? Those were the questions echoing across Britain, as millions replayed the same shocking footage. Over and over again, Downing Street was sealed off. Ministers were rushed to undisclosed locations, and security briefings went deep into the night. A visibly shaken Prime Minister addressed the nation. Just before midnight, his voice strained but deliberate. "What happened today," he said, "was not just an attack on Parliament. It was an attack on the very heart of our democracy." But for many Britons, those words did little to ease the storm that had already begun online. Within minutes, social media erupted. Hashtags demanding accountability, theories spreading like wildfire, clips dissected frame by frame. Some claimed the chaos had been orchestrated. Others insisted it was proof of how deeply divided the country had become. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear. The public no longer trusted the system to protect them, or even tell them the truth. By morning, the world's eyes were fixed on Britain. Major networks from Washington to Moscow ran the story on Loop Parliament in flames. Politicians evacuated police swarming the grounds. European leaders expressed solidarity, but behind closed doors, many whispered about instability. At the core of British governance, the markets reflected that fear instantly. The pound plunged, investors fled, and headlines warned of a crisis of confidence. Unlike anything since the 1970s, in towns and cities across the country, anger simmered. Protesters gathered outside local councils, holding placards that read, "We deserve the truth and not our parliament." For the first time in decades, the line between government and people seemed completely shattered. Meanwhile, investigators pieced together the events. Second-by-second security footage revealed just how easily the chaos unfolded. The gaps in coordination, the hesitation, the disbelief on the faces of gods, who never expected Parliament itself to become a battlefield. It was later confirmed that several members of Parliament had been injured, and at least one senior figure remained in critical condition. The revelation struck at the core of British security. How could such an attack happen? In one of the most protected buildings in Europe, each revelation deepened the outrage. Each unanswered question fed a wave of public fury that neither the government nor opposition could contain. The fallout extended beyond politics. Schools closed in central London. Transport networks were partially suspended, and the atmosphere across the UK felt eerily fragile, as if the nation itself was holding its breath. Emergency meetings at Buckingham Palace raised concerns about the stability of leadership. While intelligence sources warned of copycat incidents, if the truth wasn't released quickly, but amidst the panic, something unexpected began to emerge, and it's a rare unity among ordinary citizens. Across divides of class, race, and region, people came together to mourn, to say what had been lost on the sense of order. Pride and trust that once defined Britain's democracy. By the third day, the media narrative shifted from shock to accountability. Questions were no longer about what happened, but who allowed it to happen. Leaked reports hinted that warnings had been ignored. For weeks, internal memos suggested security lapses, known to senior officials, were brushed aside in the name of cost-cutting and politics. The outrage grew uncontrollable. Protesters camped outside Parliament, chanting through the night as police stood in silence, unwilling or unable to stop them. The message was clear: Britain wanted answers, not speeches. Then came the moment that changed everything again. Late in the evening, an independent inquiry released its preliminary findings. The attack had not been random. It was in fact a direct consequence of internal negligence, a failure of leadership at the very top. As that report hit the airwaves, resignations began to pour in. Senior officials stepped down one after another, their faces pale under the glare of flashbulbs. The Prime Minister's credibility crumbled before the cameras, and for the first time in modern memory, the country's leadership stood on the brink of collapse. Not by election, but by public revolt.